Denise has a question here. Once areas become salted, how do you unsalt them? How would you start to design to remediate and repair salted soil in broadacre applications? Is there anything to be done with salt flats and extremely high salt areas? Well, what we have to do is reduce the evaporation so that we can, that's our first priority. Reduce the evaporation with shade, wind buffering, and organic matter, which comes from the shading element of the trees. Then we need to take all the fresh water as possible that falls on the land, interrupt its flow on the surface, because there will be floods in dry areas regularly. All the rain usually comes at once. So we need to capture it with features like this with swales. We've had a wet period here, so you can see this is starting to soak water. This has been really full and now it's all soaking in. Enormous amounts of water go into the ground. This is 100% fresh water. So this starts to flush the salt. Then when you plant trees on this swale bank in time to the rain, they start to increase shade, extending the water further, wind buffering to extend the water further, reducing evaporation, add in organic matter, which extends this fresh unsalted water further. So we start to perch aquifers below the swales, and we start to tree our way across the landscape from these contour lines. So this way we start to affect the salt by dilution. Now we have to start off in that situation with very hardy trees that are salt tolerant. You might even start with tamarisk, which is one of the most salt tolerant trees in the world. But by adding the organic matter, you can actually increase the drop of tamarisk mulch to the ground. You can actually add extra mulch. You start to build the soil's organic matter and freshwater input, so you can start to build a way into more and more productive trees and valuable trees. Now you can also direct hard surface runoff. So you get hard surfaces, rocks, roads, anything that's a large percentage runoff or 100% runoff, and direct those to swales or those to large Lamonia inputs, which are like a big leaky pond or leaky lake if they're big enough, that start to input fresh water into position, which you then always grow trees on. Then also you can do leaky weirs or gabions they're called, right, on water flows that interrupt the freshwater flow and build silt fields behind, which also soak water, and you can tree away from those. So those are all the inputs that increase the rainwater, which is fresh, input to the soil, which you grow on and then extend out across the landscape. And over time, you go back to the original salted system which has minimum salts. Now groundwater is always a little bit salty in dry lands. And water that's flowed in the sun, open to the sun for a long way, will be a little bit salty because you'll have lost a certain amount of fresh only to evaporation, leaving residual salts behind. When you're talking about salt flats or salt pans, you can't actually work on the salt pan itself because it's nearly solid salt, but you can work on the catchment into the salt pan, and right where it enters the salt pan. There's some wonderful systems like this in Iran. The Ministry of Agriculture in Iran do some wonderful work with this, actually starting with tamarisk and coming back up the valleys that feed salt pans, and they're reducing the salt pans, they're reducing the salt flats by working the catchment up with very hardy species. So you can work back and reduce the size of the salt flat all the time. Wonderful stuff.